book, The Mother, still in the early chapters before we get to the grand sixth chapter. Last week, chapter 3, we noted was written to Punam Chand Shah, who was at that hour in Gujarat. Sri Aurobindo wrote him on the 1st of August, 1927, a few months after the ashram had been formed. And you'll remember that it was a bracing letter to walk through life armored against all fear, peril, and disaster. Only two things are needed, two that go always together: the grace of the Divine Mother, and on your side, an inner state made up of faith, sincerity, and surrender. Chapter 4, which is largely about the money force, is written to the same gentleman. Punam Chand was in Gujarat. We don't know precisely the date of this letter, but since chapter 5 was written, I think, on the 19th of August, and chapter 3 was written on the 1st, we can presume it was written somewhere between those two dates, perhaps around the time of Sri Aurobindo's birthday, which would have been the first birthday they celebrated in the ashram after the formation of the ashram officially, after Sri Aurobindo's withdrawal from contact. At this time, they would have seen Sri Aurobindo publicly only on Mother's birthday, when the message was distributed, which is the first chapter of this book. It's been a long time since anyone has seen Sri Aurobindo. He would have been present for them at the darshan on the 15th of August, 1927. And in those days, they could have a bit of time with him. They might exchange a few words with him if they had something to ask or something to say. Otherwise, as you know, in later years, one simply stopped in front of him, received his blessings, and then moved on. So Punam Chand is in Gujarat. He's there on a mission. The ashram, which has come into being on the 24th of November, 1926, is a large affair. When Mother first joined Sri Aurobindo in 1920, when she returned from Japan, he was still staying at what we now call the guest house at 41 Rue François Martin. By 1922 or so, they had moved from there to 9 Rue de la Marine, which is called the Library House. It's the beginning of the main ashram building, which of course extended from beyond that to occupy the entire block. But at that point, some were living in the main ashram building, the Library House, and some were living in the guest house. There were, as we've mentioned, 24 people in November, around 30 in February, and the number was growing. By 1931, there would be 100 people there, so it was 4 times the size in a short amount of time. If you've not seen a picture of that ashram as it stood then, I'm going to hold up to our Zoom camera. This is a photograph taken somewhere between 1922 and 1929. Nobody's certain. You can see the entrance to the ashram there, and it looks very familiar. It looks dingy. You can see across the street this building is in a state of disrepair. Later it would be taken up and improved. In fact, Datta lived there Miss Hodgson, who was the Irish lady who came back with Mother from Japan. They met in 1916 there. So that's what it looked like. And I think we can pass this around the room and you might enjoy seeing it. Huh? Yeah. And then in 1949, it has been made to look a great deal better. It looks very similar to the way that the ashram looks today. Note how many automobiles there are on the street. 0. People are walking on those large French boulevards. But you can see it is a large place to maintain. I make the point because the mother in Sri Aurobindo note that there are a lot of people to take care of, and many of the people who are there living with them in the ashram are not wealthy and didn't bring a great deal of money with them. They brought their aspiration, but they all continue to have human needs. They need to eat, they need a place to stay, and so buildings have to be rented or purchased, and so it's an ongoing affair. A few people have the impression that Mother was wealthy. She had, as it was described, I think, a little better, a small fortune, which was left to her after her father's passing. But it was not a great, enormous amount of money. She was not a Rockefeller. She was not a Kellogg. So the idea of maintaining the ashram in practical terms meant having an inflow of cash, because they had no way to generate funds. People think again of Sri Aurobindo as being a popular author. He is now well known. His books are commonly available, but in those days, Essays on the Gita had been published in 1923, but only in the first series. It was out of print. In 1926, the Arya Publishing House brought out again the first series to reissue that, and it took them 2 years till 1928 to bring out the second series. So even if these books were selling well, they were not generating a lot of income. Those were the only books available. The Arya had gone out of print. Thank you. So there were some small books. The Isha Upanishad, the Katha Upanishad had been brought out, but those are more like booklets, ideals and progress, a few political writings, thoughts and glimpses, but there wasn't much available to purchase. So there is no income stream coming in because of his authorial renown. How was the money to come? So, this chapter is a letter written to Punam Chand in Gujarat. Punam Chand has gone back to his home and is going out and speaking with people, emboldened, fortified by what we read as chapter 3, and now wondering how best to go and approach people. And this becomes a template. Many people had the impression that Barin, Sri Aurobindo's brother, had received this letter and gone out to Bengal to try to raise money. Well, there was a great deal more money in Gujarat than there was in Bengal in those days. And you can take it that this letter, once written, was copied and distributed. Because if people were going to go and speak about the money force, they had to be in a good inner condition, and they had to represent the highest ideal. So, let's read this chapter. Chapter 4. Money is the visible sign of a universal force, and this force in its manifestation on earth works on the vital and physical planes, and is indispensable to the fullness of the outer life. In its origin and its true action, it belongs to the divine. But like other powers of the divine, it is delegated here, and in the ignorance of the lower nature, can be usurped for the uses of the ego, or held by asuric influences and perverted to their purpose. This is indeed one of the three forces, power, wealth, sex, that have the strongest attraction for the human ego and the asura, and are most generally misheld and misused by those who retain them. The seekers or keepers of wealth are more often possessed rather than its possessors. Few escape entirely a certain distorting influence stamped on it by its long seizure and perversion by the asura. For this reason, most spiritual disciplines insist on a complete self-control, detachment, and renunciation of all bondage to wealth and of all personal and egoistic desire for its possession. Some even put a ban on money and riches, and proclaim poverty and bareness of life as the only spiritual condition. But this is an error. It leaves the power in the hands of the hostile forces. To reconquer it for the divine to whom it belongs, and use it divinely for the divine life, is the supramental way for the sadhaka. You must neither turn with an ascetic shrinking from the money power, the means it gives, and the objects it brings, nor cherish a rajasic attachment to them, or a spirit of enslaving self-indulgence in their gratifications. Regard wealth simply as a power to be won back for the mother and placed at her service. All wealth belongs to the divine, and those who hold it are trustees, not possessors. It is with them today. Tomorrow it may be elsewhere. All depends on the way they discharge their trust while it is with them, in what spirit, with what consciousness in their use of it, to what purpose. In your personal use of money, look on all you have or get or bring as the mother's. Make no demand, but accept what you receive from her and use it for the purposes for which it is given to you. Be entirely selfless, entirely scrupulous, exact, careful in detail, a good trustee. Always consider that it is her possessions and not your own that you are handling. On the other hand, what you receive for her, lay religiously before her. Turn nothing to your own or anybody else's purpose. Do not look up to men because of their riches, or allow yourself to be impressed by the show, the power, or the influence. When you ask for the mother, you must feel that it is she who is demanding through you a very little of what belongs to her, and the man from whom you ask will be judged by his response. If you are free from the money taint, but without any ascetic withdrawal, you will have a greater power to command the money force for the divine work. Equality of mind, absence of demand, and the full dedication of all you possess and receive, and all your power of acquisition to the divine Shakti and her work, are the signs of this freedom. Any perturbation of mind with regard to money and its use, any claim, any grudging, is a sure index of some imperfection or bondage. The ideal sadhaka in this kind is one who, if required to live poorly, can so live, and no sense of want will affect him or interfere with the full inner play of the divine consciousness? And if he is required to live richly, can so live, and never for a moment fall into desire or attachment to his wealth, or to the things that he uses, or servitude to self-indulgence, or a weak bondage to the habits that the possession of riches creates. The divine will is all for him, and the divine Ananda. In the supramental creation, the money force has to be restored to the divine power and used for a true and beautiful and harmonious equipment and ordering of a new divinized vital and physical existence in whatever way the Divine Mother herself decides in her creative vision. But first it must be conquered back for her, and those will be strongest for the conquest, who are, in this part of their nature, strong and large and free from ego, and surrendered without any claim or withholding or hesitation, pure and powerful channels for the supreme puissance. Pertinent to this are some letters that Sri Aurobindo wrote in subsequent years. It won't take long to read, and I think you'll hear and feel how they resonate and accord with what we just heard. Giving money to the mother. You will find with this a letter from the mother giving you her point of view with regard to the request for a written statement from herself about approaching people for money. You must make X understand that this is not done and cannot be done. If he feels moved to do this work, if he feels moved to do this as work for the mother, the knowledge that it is needed should be enough. It is not a question of a public appeal for funds, but of getting friends and sympathizers to help. You will see from the mother's letter the spirit in which it should be done. We don't have the letter that she wrote attached to this. Another. The mother has never objected to people who cannot pay, residing or visiting the ashram without paying. She expects payment only from visitors who can pay. She did object strongly to the action of some rich visitors on one occasion who came here, spent money lavishly on purchases, etc., and went off without giving anything to the ashram or even the smallest offering to the mother. That is all. Here from the appendix, 2 texts. The editor notes, Sri Aurobindo wrote these 2 pieces around 1927, soon after the mother took up the charge of the ashram. In the first, he speaks from the point of view of the mother. In the second, he speaks from the point of view of the god of wealth. The second piece may have been written for a disciple who had undertaken to collect money for the ashram. I am the Shakti of Sri Aurobindo alone, and the mother of all my children. My children are all equally part of my consciousness and of my being. When transformed and realized, all will have an equal right to manifest each one an aspect of myself and Sri Aurobindo. It is the unity of all in the solidarity of a common manifestation that will allow the creation of the new and divine world upon the earth. Each will bring his part, but no part will be complete except as a power in the solidarity of the whole. So Sri Aurobindo wrote that, and that's Mother's voice. The second, the God of wealth. I am the God of wealth, the strong and splendid. I am the master of the thousands and the regent of the millions. I am the puissant creator, the full-handed gatherer, the opulent disposer of treasures. All the riches of every kind that are in the earth and on the earth and below it, and all the riches that are in the waters, are mine by right. I have power over all their plenitudes. My power is for the mother. I call all these riches for her, that I may dedicate them to her, that I may lay them at the feet of the Mother of Radiances. And here in Sanskrit it says, Om Tatastu. Om, may it be so. There are some longer letters which are pertinent to collective life in an ashram and to the material well-being of all. And if you'll indulge me, I'd like to read those. This regards the mother and the discipline in the ashram, the mother who is in sole charge in the ashram. What your vital being seems to have kept all along is the bargain or the mess attitude in these matters. One gives some kind of commodity, which he calls devotion or surrender, and in return, the mother is under obligation to supply satisfaction for all demands and desires, spiritual, mental, vital, and physical, and if she falls short in her task, she has broken her contract. The ashram is a sort of communal hotel or mess. The mother is the hotel keeper or mess manager. One gives what one can or chooses to give, or it may be nothing at all except the aforesaid commodity. In return, the palate, the stomach, and all the physical demands have to be satisfied to the full. If not, one has every right to keep one's money and to abuse the defaulting hotel keeper or mess manager. This attitude has nothing whatever to do with sadhana or yoga, and I absolutely repudiate the right of anyone to impose it as a basis for my work or for the life of the ashram. There are only two possible foundations for the material life here. One is that one is a member of an ashram founded on the principle of self-giving and surrender. One belongs to the divine, and all one has belongs to the divine. In giving, one gives not what is one's own, but what already belongs to the divine. There is no question of payment or return, no bargain, no room for demand and desire. The mother is in sole charge and arranges things as best they can be arranged within the means at her disposal and the capacities of her instruments. She is under no obligation to act according to the mental standards or vital desires and claims of the sadhaks. She is not obliged to use a democratic equality in her dealings with them. She is free to deal with each according to what she sees to be his true need or what is best for him in his spiritual progress. No one can be her judge or impose on her his own rule and standard. She alone can make rules, and she can depart from them too if she thinks fit, but no one can demand that she shall do so. Personal demands and desires cannot be imposed on her. If anyone has what he finds to be a real need or a suggestion to make, which is within the province assigned to him, he can do so. But if she gives no sanction, he must remain satisfied and drop the matter. This is the spiritual discipline of which the one who represents or embodies the divine truth is the center. Either she is that, and all this is the plain common sense of the matter, or she is not, and then no one need stay here. Each can go his own way, and there is no ashram and no yoga. If, on the other hand, one is not ready to be a member of the ashram or bear the discipline, and is still admitted to some place in the yoga, he remains apart and meets his own expenses. There is no discipline for him on the material plane except the rules necessary for the safety of the work. There is no material responsibility for the mother. That was written in April of 1930. So you see the tone. It is still a human community that Sri Aurobindo and the mother are dealing with, wrestling with the human condition as it is, bringing to the fore, increasingly we hope, the power of their aspiration, the force of their will in the practice of the yoga, of the sadhana, which is difficult and demanding, but takes one towards the divine. It's not an easy life of peace and felicity withdrawn from the world that's demanded. This is a world-changing yoga, aiming at the evolution of a new type and power of consciousness. But we must make secure the physical basis, and we have to organize it well. What is here, if she gives no sanction, he must remain satisfied and drop the matter. I remember sadhaks in the ashram laughing and saying, if you ask mother for something and she gives it to you, it's a grace. If she does not give it to you, it's a double grace. Because you learned, I didn't really need that. There's more that I could read. I'll spare you. I want to come back and look at some of the references here. We're not going to talk about Mahalakshmi tonight. We'll save that for when we get to the 6th chapter. But there are pertinent references in here to the traditional practice of yoga. One of the three forces, Sri Aurobindo notes, that strongly attract the human ego: power, wealth, sex. Of course, just a few decades earlier, the by now world-famous saint Sri Ramakrishna, Amsha Avatar, who lived in Bengal outside of Kolkata, had always warned that young group around him about the dangers of women and wealth. Of course, Sri Aurobindo notes later that that might have been true when they were raw, just beginning to practice yoga, and didn't have the power to resist all of these things. but that it was not an absolute bar. Of course, Sri Ramakrishna was not practicing the type of sadhana, the integral yoga that Sri Aurobindo aimed at. But it's something long held since the first movements towards renunciation with the advent of Jainism and Buddhism in India, say 300 or 400 BCE, finally getting a hold within the Brahmanical community through the efforts of Shankara and Advaita Vedanta. And that's when it comes into being in India more largely. The monastic tradition was not accepted easily by Brahmanical, what we would call Hindu peoples. They were world-affirming in the main. So the idea that most spiritual disciplines insist on a complete self-control, in other words, a renunciation of these things, that's part of sannyasa, and that comes creeping into India only in the early centuries CE. So thousands of years of spiritual practice in India have gone towards the affirmation of life, not otherwise. In fact, when we look at the practice of the Tantra, we see, for instance, in the Kularnava Tantra, that it refuses to push away the world, to push away the beauty and delight that are part of our experience of nature. It says, Bhoga and Yoga both comprise the path of the Kaula. Kularnava Tantra 2:23. It goes on to say, Bhoga becomes yoga. Enjoyment becomes yoga. Evil becomes good. Life leads to liberation in the Kaula path. So this is a means of synthesizing, of bringing together spirit and nature, which is akin to what Sri Aurobindo aims at as well. That spirit should not deny matter, that matter should not refuse spirit, but they should recognize that they are from a common one. In your personal use of money, look on all you have or get or bring as the mother's. It reminded me of something M.P. Pandit told me when first he became a member of the Sri Aurobindo ashram. He would have been about 21 years old, 1939. And you're all familiar with prosperity, that once a month you go and you collect the things that you need for your life. Towels and soaps and a little pocket money. Mother at one point early in the ashram's history was giving people 5 rupees and maybe a little more. And someone asked Sri Aurobindo, why is she doing that? She says, I want to perform an experiment. I want to see what they will do with the money, how they will use the money for us. If I receive and I give to them, what will they do with it? A conscious experiment. Not to lavish wealth upon them. Let's see how they turn this force to action. But when Madhav joined the ashram, he went to move into the household of Sri T.V. Kapali Shastriya, whom we've mentioned several times so far. And they went to prosperity. And people were receiving things and carrying out armloads of clothes, etc. And Kapali stretched out his hands and received from Mother a box of matches. And so Madhav did the same thing. And he said, we receive these matches only, as a symbol of aspiration. We ignite our aspiration when we strike that match. It symbolizes that for us. But we have come here not to take from Mother, but to give to Mother. And M.P. Pandit, as his service for the Mother grew, became not simply a stream, but a wide channel through which the world poured money to the Mother. Mother always struggled during her life to maintain the ashram in its physicality. As it expanded and grew from a couple of houses to 80 houses and then to hundreds, and the population increased from 24 to 1,500. All those demands were on her. She had to generate the consciousness that would change them, and often the money that she needed to help with the transformative part of the work, to dig into matter and to remold it and change it, was not present. The money, ironically, began to flow into the ashram after she left us physically. Before then, she had sold and given everything that she had away to help the ashram, so that her children could have the chance to change their consciousness and experience what had already been fully realized in her. This is the truth. We've seen it in a couple of letters, that we deport ourselves as if we're finally going to make an offering of something. We have never owned anything, and we never will. Everything is the being of the Divine Mother. Every physical object, every emotion, every thought you have, every illumination, every inspiration, all is a part of her effulgence and has never departed from her possession. But you can, if you become aware of that, consciously reassign all these things and energies from behind their veil of ignorance into full disclosure of what they are, and they can travel back to her and then happily be deployed in other ways. Equality of mind, Sri Aurobindo writes, absence of demand, dedication of all you possess. Equality of mind, samatha. Full dedication, samarpana. Self-giving, equality of vision. This comes perfectly when you realize there is only one in all of its manifestations, occupying every one you see, every station of existence, high and low, vast, cosmic, microscopic. Only one being, her being. The ideal sadhaka in this kind is one who, if required to live poorly, can so live. And if he's required to live richly, can so live. She said somewhere, I think in the 1950s, that she had tried to give a wee bit of luxury, a wee bit of prosperity to the people who came to her to live in the ashram there, because it was a world-affirming place, after all. But after having seen the way the energies and the physical items were used by the sadhaks and sadhikas, she thought maybe she could have moved a little bit more to the ascetic side. In the supramental creation, the money force has to be restored to the divine power, used for a true and beautiful and harmonious equipment and ordering of a new divinized vital and physical existence in whatever way the Divine Mother herself decides in her creative vision. So here in the ashram, she's bringing together a collective, a spiritual army who are willing to tackle the bases of ignorance and ego which lie in themselves with the power of their illumined soul and its ability to receive light and energy from above and to transmit it to all the parts of their being and to share all that they realize and feel through significant forms with all else in the community, and stretching therefore and thereafter out into the wider world. Not simply the city of Pondicherry, but all of India, all the world. And we bring our offering. And we give. And the less we're aware of ourself in the offering, the better it is. A wise soul told me 3 decades ago and more that in India there is a tradition that if you give money to the enlightened one, and that one accepts it, it is a blessing to you. Because that enlightened one has no needs. In accepting that offering, they allow you to establish a relationship with them that extends from the inwards into the life force, and from the life force into the physical, so that the blessings reside in you at the soul level, at the life level, and in your very body. So, when Poonam Chand goes to Gujarat, and the wealthy there give money, which he carries back and lays before the mother, that establishes a living connection with the yoga all the way over there in that outpost in Gujarat. They're part of the work. They're fueling the work. They will feel the benefit of that. They don't do it to get a benefit, we hope. That letter from Sri Aurobindo ensures that Poonam Chand has the right attitude. So these are standards of conduct, if you will. Minimal standards. Because if you listen to your soul, you don't need the standard of the mind to guide you. The soul knows what it feels and loves to give and loves to share, but not to waste. We may say more next time, but we'll be moving on shortly to the 5th chapter, the one about divine works. If you have another moment to spare, I'd like to read to to you for Savitri. This is from Book 1, the Book of Beginnings, Canto 3. Pardon me. The Yoga of the Soul's Release. A glimpse was caught of things forever unknown. The letters stood out of the unmoving word. In the immutable, nameless origin was seen emerging as from fathomless seas the trail of the ideas that made the world, and sown in the black earth of nature's trance, the seed of the spirit's blind and huge desire, from which the tree of cosmos was conceived and spread its magic arms through a dream of space. Immense realities took on a shape. There looked out from the shadow of the unknown the bodiless namelessness that saw God born and tries to gain from the mortal's mind and soul a deathless body and a divine name. The immobile lips, the great surreal wings, the visage masked by superconscient sleep, the eyes with their closed lids that see all things, appeared of the architect who builds in trance. The original desire born in the void peered out. He saw the hope that never sleeps, the feet that run behind a fleeting fate, the ineffable meaning of the endless dream. Hardly for a moment glimpsed, viewless to mind, as if a torch held by a power of God, the radiant world of the everlasting truth glimmered like a faint star bordering the night above the golden overmind's shimmering ridge. Even were caught, as through a cunning veil, the smile of love that sanctions the long game, the calm indulgence and maternal breasts of wisdom suckling the child laughter of chance, silence, the nurse of the Almighty's power, the omniscient hush, womb of the immortal word, and of the timeless, the still brooding face, and the creative eye of eternity. The inspiring goddess entered a mortal's breast, made there her study of divining thought and sanctuary of prophetic speech, and sat upon the tripod seat of mind. All was made wide above, all lit below. In darkness' core she dug out wells of light. On the undiscovered depths imposed a form, lent a vibrant cry to the unuttered vasts, and through great shoreless, voiceless, starless breadths bore earthward fragments of revealing thought, hewn from the silence of the ineffable. A voice in the heart uttered the unspoken name, a dream of seeking thought wandering through space entered the invisible and forbidden house. The treasure was found of a supernal day. In the deep subconscious glowed her jewel lamp, lifted It showed the riches of the cave where, by the miser traffickers of sense, unused, guarded beneath night's dragon paws, in folds of velvet darkness draped they sleep, whose priceless value could have saved the world. A darkness carrying morning in its breast looked for the eternal wide returning gleam, waiting the advent of a larger ray and rescue of the lost herds of the sun. In a splendid extravagance of the waste of God, dropped carelessly in creation's spendthrift work, left in the chantiers of the bottomless world, and stolen by the robbers of the deep, the golden shekels of the eternal lie, hoarded from touch and view and thought's desire, locked in blind antries of the ignorant flood, lest men should find them and be even as gods. A vision lightened on the viewless heights, a wisdom illumined from the voiceless depths. A deeper interpretation greatened truth, a grand reversal of the night and day. All the world's values changed, heightening life's aim. A wiser word, a larger thought came in than what the slow labor of human mind can bring. A secret sense awoke that could perceive a presence and a greatness everywhere. Namaste. Jai Ma. And we're about 2 weeks away from Durga Puja, a happy thing that will still be in the book, The Mother, then. Namaste to all our friends on Zoom. Much love. Thank you for coming. Good to see you. Stay well. Stay bright. Lead the world. It's waiting for you.